I walked into the Rosewood Hotel ballroom carrying 3 tiers of Italian cream cake, and that's when I saw him. My ex-husband Marcus stood near the champagne fountain, his hand resting on the small of her back. My sister-in-law. His wife now. The woman who'd smiled at me across Thanksgiving tables while sleeping with my husband in my bed. 7 years had passed since I'd left Chicago with nothing but my grandmother's recipes and a maxed-out credit card. 7 years since I'd discovered them together and chosen silence over confrontation. But I wasn't here for revenge. I was here because Natalie Chen, Chicago's most prestigious wedding planner, had hired my bakery to cater her biggest event of the season. I had no idea whose wedding it was until I saw the name on the cake topper. Jordan Mitchell. Their son. The boy I'd helped raise from ages 8 to 12 before his mother decided she wanted my life more than her own. Marcus's face went white. His champagne flute actually slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. I steadied my hands and kept walking toward the dessert table. I had a job to do. But let me back up. You need to understand how I got here. 10 years ago I was Emma Parker, assistant manager at a corporate bakery chain, married to Marcus Mitchell, a real estate developer. We lived in a nice house in Oak Park. We hosted family dinners. We talked about having kids eventually. I thought I knew what my life looked like. Marcus's younger sister, Diane, had gone through a messy divorce around that time. She moved back to Chicago with 8-year-old Jordan, and Marcus insisted we help her get back on her feet. I agreed. Family is family, right? Diane started coming over 3-4 times a week. She'd cook dinner. She was an amazing cook, better than me, and she made sure everyone knew it. "Oh, Emma, you're just so busy with work," she'd say, gently pushing me out of my own kitchen. "Let me handle this. You just relax." I should have seen it then. The way she'd touch Marcus's arm when she laughed. The inside jokes that started forming. The overnight stays that became twice a week, then every weekend, because Jordan does his homework better here or the hot water's out again at my place. I actually felt sorry for her. 3 years into this arrangement, I started noticing things. Small things. A black hair tie on my bathroom counter. I had blonde hair. Coffee mugs left in the sink on mornings I left for work before Marcus. The way Marcus's phone was suddenly always face down. One Tuesday afternoon, I left work early with a migraine. I drove home, used my key quietly because my head was pounding and I just wanted to lie down in a dark room. I heard them before I saw them. In my bedroom. In my bed. The bed where Marcus had told me that morning he loved me before I left for my 6 a.m. shift. I stood in the hallway for what felt like hours but was probably 30 seconds. I could have walked in. Could have screamed. Could have thrown things. Instead, I backed out of my own house and sat in my car for 3 hours trying to figure out what to do. When I finally went back inside, they were gone. Marcus texted me around 6 p.m., working late. "Diane's making dinner for Jordan. I'll eat there." I didn't respond. For the next month, I became a detective in my own life. I checked our bank statements, thousands of dollars withdrawn over the past 6 months. I found a credit card I didn't know existed, maxed out on a vacation rental in Michigan. I discovered Marcus had refinanced our house without telling me, pulling out equity. I found emails. God, the emails. 2 years worth of I love yous and she'll never know, and detailed plans about after we tell her. They weren't planning to tell me. They were planning to have me committed. I found a consultation summary from a psychiatrist Marcus had seen alone discussing my erratic behavior and paranoid episodes. Things I'd never experienced. He was building a case to have me declared mentally unfit. Then he could divorce me, claim I was unstable, keep the house, keep the money, keep everything. That night, I sat at our kitchen table, the table Diane had picked out, actually, saying my taste was a bit plain, and I made a choice. I could fight. I could hire a lawyer. I could drag everything into the light and watch my life become a courtroom drama. Or I could leave. I could take what I could carry and start over somewhere they'd never find me. I know what you're thinking. That I was weak. That I should have fought. I had evidence. I had proof of fraud, adultery, conspiracy. But here's what I knew. Marcus had money, connections, a lawyer brother-in-law. I had a salary that barely covered my student loans and a family that lived 2,000 miles away. Fighting would have destroyed me even if I won. So I chose door number 3. I disappeared. I withdrew what little was left in our joint account, $3,847. I packed my grandmother's recipe box, my clothes, my laptop, and my cat. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a note that said 4 words, I know, I'm done. I drove through the night to Louisville, Kentucky. I'd been there once for a wedding and remembered thinking the downtown area was charming. I figured it was far enough away but not so far I'd feel completely untethered. I rented a studio apartment above a laundromat for $650 a month. I got a job waitressing at a 2-4-hour diner. And in my off hours, I started baking. My grandmother had owned a small bakery in Memphis in the 1960s. She taught me everything: how to make a proper pound cake, how to tell when bread dough had been kneaded enough, how to temper chocolate without a thermometer. Those recipes, handwritten in her careful cursive, were the only inheritance I'd ever received. I started small. I'd bake cakes and bring them to the diner. The owner, a woman named Ruth who looked like she'd seen everything twice, let me leave business cards on the counter. Emma's Custom Cakes. Call for pricing. My first order was a birthday cake for $35. I cried when the customer handed me 2 20s and told me to keep the change. Within 6 months, I had enough regular customers to quit the diner. Within a year, I rented a small commercial kitchen space. Within 2 years, I hired my first employee, a young pastry chef named Miguel who just graduated from culinary school and was looking for a place that would let him experiment. We called it proof, a baking term but also a personal one. Proof that I could do this. Proof that I was more than what Marcus and Diane had tried to reduce me to. I never contacted anyone from my old life. I changed my phone number. I stayed off social media. When my mom called my old number looking for me, Marcus apparently told her I'd had a breakdown and left him. She believed him. That hurt more than the affair, honestly. Year 3, we moved into a bigger space. Year 4, we expanded into wedding cakes. Year 5, we won Best Bakery in Louisville from the local magazine. And in year 7, Natalie Chen called. Natalie was legendary. If you were getting married in Chicago and you had money, you hired Natalie Chen. She didn't just plan weddings, she created experiences. Her work had been featured in Vogue, Martha Stewart Weddings, every major publication you could think of. I've been following your work on Instagram, she said when she called. I'd finally created a business account a year earlier, mostly posting photos of Miguel's more artistic creations. Your portfolio is exactly what I need for a high-profile wedding in Chicago. Early June. Budget is not a concern. The client wants sophisticated, modern, but with a touch of nostalgic Americana. I thought of your grandmother's hummingbird cake immediately when I saw your post. Chicago. My hands went cold. When in June? I asked. The 15th. I know it's short notice, but my original baker had a family emergency. I need someone who can deliver 500 desserts including a show-stopping wedding cake. I'll pay premium rush fees, of course. June 15th. I looked at my calendar. A Saturday. Prime wedding season. This kind of exposure could put proof on the national map. Natalie Chen used a new bakery and posted about it. We'd be booked solid for years. Can I ask whose wedding it is? Olivia Hartwell and Jordan Mitchell. Do you know them? Jordan Mitchell. The 8-year-old boy who used to help me make cookies, who called me Aunt Emma, who cried when his mom and dad divorced. Now 22. Getting married. No, I lied. I don't know them. Perfect. I'll email you the details. This is going to be spectacular, Emma. I hung up and stared at the wall for 10 minutes. Miguel found me like that. Boss. You okay? We're doing a wedding in Chicago. That's great. The Natalie Chen job you mentioned? Yeah. I pulled up the email Natalie had just sent. There was an attachment, the engagement photo. Jordan, tall and handsome in a suit. And next to him, a beautiful young woman with kind eyes. No photos of the parents. But I knew Marcus and Diane would be there. They'd raised Jordan together for the past 7 years. They were probably helping pay for this wedding. You look like you've seen a ghost, Miguel said. Maybe I have. I closed my laptop. We need to make this the best work we've ever done. Because here's what I realized in that moment. I didn't need revenge. I needed to show them and myself that I hadn't just survived. I'd won. The next 6 weeks were a blur. We tested recipes obsessively. I decided on a 5-tier cake with each layer a different classic American dessert flavor. Strawberry shortcake, lemon meringue, cherry pie, chocolate cream, and topped with my grandmother's hummingbird cake banana, pineapple, and pecans with cream cheese frosting. Each tier would be decorated to look like vintage cake boxes from the 1950s and 60s, with hand-painted details. For the 500 individual desserts, we created a collection: mini chess pies, bourbon pecan tarts, lavender shortbread, brown butter blondies, and malted chocolate whoopie pies. Each one would be placed in a custom box with the couple's monogram. Natalie kept sending enthusiastic emails. The bride's mother saw the mock-ups and cried, "You're an artist, Emma." The bride's mother, Diane. I wondered if she'd recognize my name. I'd kept my maiden name for the business Emma Parker, not Emma Mitchell. But would she remember? Would she care? The night before we left for Chicago, I barely slept. Miguel and I had rented a truck to transport everything. We'd arrive Friday, set up Friday night and Saturday morning, and the wedding was Saturday at 6 p.m. "You nervous?" Miguel asked as we loaded the last box. "Terrified," I admitted. "Best work you've ever done," he said. "They're going to lose their minds." We did lose our minds, actually, when we pulled up to the Rosewood Hotel. The ballroom was stunning floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River, crystal chandeliers, tables set with gold china. Natalie had gone all out. "Emma Parker?" A woman in a headset approached me. "I'm Claire, Natalie's assistant. Let me show you to the dessert area." We worked through the night. Miguel assembled the cake while I arranged the individual desserts. By 4 a.m., it was perfect. The cake stood nearly 6 feet tall, each tier a work of art. The painted details looked like they'd been printed on actual vintage boxes. In the soft uplighting, it glowed. "This might be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Claire whispered. I took a photo, posted it on Instagram with the caption, "Sometimes the sweetest revenge is success." Chicago wedding for the incredible at Natalie Chin. Events. Number Proof Bakery. Number Wedding Cake. Number Chicago Weddings. Then Miguel and I went back to our hotel to sleep for a few hours. We had to return at 5 p.m. for final touch-ups before guests arrived at 6. When we came back, the ballroom was transformed. Flowers everywhere, white roses, peonies, garden roses that probably cost more than my first month's rent in Louisville. String quartet playing softly. Guests already beginning to arrive. And that's when I saw him. Marcus looked older. Grayer. He wore an expensive suit that probably cost what I used to make in a month. Diane clung to his arm in a designer dress, her hair swept up, dripping with diamonds. I turned away quickly and focused on arranging the dessert table. Miguel sensed something was wrong but didn't ask. The ceremony was starting. I heard music swell, heard people shifting in their seats. I stayed in the back, near the kitchen entrance, making sure everything was perfect. Jordan looked so grown up when he walked down the aisle. I remembered him at 12, gangly and awkward, asking me to help him with his math homework. Now he was a man, looking at his bride like she hung the moon. I felt something crack in my chest. I'd lost more than just my marriage when I left. I'd lost him too. The kid I'd genuinely loved. After the ceremony, guests flooded toward the cocktail hour. That's when Diane saw the cake. I heard her gasp from across the room. "Oh my God, Marcus, look at this. It's perfection." She had no idea I was there. I stood partially hidden behind a column, watching her examine my work. She pulled out her phone and took photos, probably to post on her social media. "My son's wedding cake," she'd probably caption it. She'd take credit for this too, just like she'd taken credit for everything in my old life. Marcus joined her. Natalie really outdid herself with this baker. "What's the name?" "Proof. They're from Louisville, apparently," Diane said, reading from the small placard Natalie had insisted on placing near the cake. "Emma Parker, owner and pastry chef." I watched Marcus's face. Nothing. He didn't recognize my name. 7 years. And he'd forgotten me so completely he didn't even remember my maiden name. But then Diane's face changed. She went very still. "Emma Parker," she repeated slowly. "What?" Marcus asked. That was her maiden name. "Before you married." I watched the color drain from Marcus's face. "That's not." "It couldn't be. There's a photo." On the placard. Diane picked it up with shaking hands. It was a professional headshot Miguel had insisted I take last year. I looked different, stronger, more confident, my hair longer, wearing chef's whites. But it was unmistakably me. "Oh God," Marcus whispered. That's when I decided to walk toward the dessert table. I had 3 tiers of Italian cream cake to deliver. We'd made extra decorative tiers for photos that weren't part of the main structure. Marcus saw me, and his champagne flute hit the floor. "Hello, Marcus," I said calmly, setting down the cake tiers. "Diane. You look well." Diane couldn't speak. She just stared at me like I'd risen from the dead. Emma?" Marcus stammered. "I run the bakery Natalie hired for Jordan's wedding," I said pleasantly, like I was explaining the weather. "Congratulations on your son's marriage. He looks very happy. You're in Louisville." Diane finally found her voice. "I own a bakery there, yes. We're quite successful. Natalie's been wonderful to work with." A small crowd had gathered, sensing drama. Natalie herself appeared at my elbow. "Emma, there you are. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell. I see you've met our incredibly talented pastry chef. Your son personally requested her hummingbird cake when I showed him the portfolio. Said it reminded him of someone he used to know. Jordan. He'd requested my grandmother's recipe. He remembered," I said softly. "Emma used to." Marcus started, but I cut him off. "I used to live in Chicago," I said smoothly. "Small world. Now if you'll excuse me, I have more desserts to bring out." "Miguel?" My assistant appeared with a cart of mini desserts. We made a show of arranging them beautifully while Marcus and Diane stood frozen. "Is everything all right?" Natalie asked them, confused by their obvious distress. "Fine," Diane said tightly. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. Because Jordan had appeared, his new wife on his arm. "Mom, Dad, have you seen the cake? It's exactly like the ones Aunt Emma used to make." I told Natalie I wanted something that felt like, "Oh." He stopped when he saw me. "Hi, Jordan," I said gently. His eyes widened. "Aunt Emma? Is that really you?" "It's me. I thought you moved away. Dad said you were sick and couldn't visit anymore." The crowd around us had grown larger. This was definitely drama now. I could see phone cameras starting to appear. "I wasn't sick," I said clearly. "I moved to Louisville and opened a bakery. Your wedding planner hired me." "You made this?" Jordan gestured to the massive cake. "This is incredible. Olivia, this is Emma, the woman I told you about. She practically raised me when I was little." Olivia smiled warmly. "Jordan talks about you all the time. I'm so glad you're here." "Wait," Jordan looked confused. "But why did you disappear?" "Mom and Dad said you'd had some kind of breakdown and just left." The ballroom had gone very quiet. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. This was the moment. I could expose everything. I had copies of the emails in my phone. I had bank statements. I had proof of the fraud, the affair, the conspiracy to have me committed. I could ruin them in front of everyone they'd ever known. Diane's face was white. Marcus looked like he might be sick. "Jordan," I said carefully, "today is about you and Olivia. It's not about old family drama. But your parents and I had a complicated situation 7 years ago. We all made choices. I chose to leave and build a new life. They chose to stay together. Those were adult decisions that had nothing to do with you." "Emma," Marcus said desperately, "please. Can we talk privately?" "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "I'm here to do a job, and I'm proud of the work we've created for Jordan's special day. That's all." But Diane couldn't leave it alone. "You left without a word. You disappeared. Do you know what that did to us? The questions? The police? You called the police?" I raised an eyebrow. "We thought something had happened to you." "No, you didn't. You thought I might cause problems. But I didn't. I left quietly because I wanted to start over without the mess of a public divorce." "Wait," Olivia said slowly. "You were married to Jordan's dad?" "But I thought." "Jordan, you told me your dad married your mom after his first wife left him." "His first wife is standing right here," I said. "And technically, I'm still legally married to him, since we never actually filed for divorce. I left. He remarried anyway. That's called bigamy, by the way. You could have heard a pin drop." Marcus went from white to gray. "That's not." "We filed papers." "Really? With which lawyer?" "Because I never received any papers. Never signed anything. So unless you forged my signature, which would be fraud, you're currently married to 2 women." I hadn't planned to say any of this. But seeing them standing there, Still playing victims. Still lying even at their own son's wedding. Something in me snapped. 7 years ago, I came home early from work and found my husband in bed with his sister. For months afterward, they worked together to drain our bank accounts and build a case to have me institutionalized so he could keep all our assets. I found the evidence, and instead of fighting, I chose to leave. I built a new life. A successful life. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But apparently, I continued, my voice steady. You two couldn't even be honest with Jordan about why I left. You let him think I abandoned him because I was sick. He was 12 years old, Marcus. He cried for weeks when I left. I know because I called the school counselor to make sure someone was checking on him. Jordan's face crumpled. You called the school? Of course I did. I loved you, Jordan. I still do. But I couldn't stay in a situation that was destroying me. I thought your parents would at least be honest with you eventually. Natalie stepped forward, her face professional but her eyes sharp. Emma, perhaps we should. No, it's fine. I turned to Jordan and Olivia. I'm sorry. This is your day and I've made it about old pain. That wasn't fair. You didn't make it about anything, Olivia said firmly. She looked at Diane and Marcus with barely concealed disgust. They did. Jordan just stood there, tears running down his face. All these years I thought you didn't care. I thought you just left. I never stopped caring about you, I said gently. I just couldn't stay. An older woman pushed through the crowd. Jordan's grandmother, Marcus's mother. I'd always liked her. Emma? Good Lord, Emma Parker? Hi, Margaret. These fools told me you'd run off to California with some boyfriend. I knew that was nonsense. You never did care much for the beach. She turned to Marcus with fury in her eyes. You told me she left you for another man. She did leave. Marcus protested weakly. After you slept with your sister in her bed. Margaret's voice could cut glass. Don't you dare lie to me, boy. I can see it written all over your face. The crowd was enormous now. Pretty much every wedding guest had gathered around the dessert table, and half of them were recording on their phones. Diane finally spoke, her voice desperate. It just happened. We fell in love. We didn't mean to hurt anyone. You didn't mean to hurt anyone? I laughed, and it came out bitter. Diane, you moved into my house, slept in my bed, stole my husband, took my money, convinced my own mother I was crazy, and tried to have me committed to a psychiatric facility. But you didn't mean to hurt anyone. I have the emails, I said, pulling out my phone. I've had them for 7 years. I just never wanted to use them because I thought maybe Jordan would be better off not knowing. I looked at Jordan. But you deserve the truth. You deserve to know why I really left. I handed him my phone. He scrolled through the emails, his face getting paler with each message. Olivia read over his shoulder, her hand covering her mouth. Oh my God, Jordan whispered. Mom, you wrote this? She's so pathetic she doesn't even know she's already gone. About Emma, Jordan. You have to understand. No, he shouted, and the room fell silent again. No, I don't have to understand anything. You lied to me. For 7 years, you lied to me about the person who actually cared about me while you were. He gestured at the phone, plotting to steal everything from her. He handed me back my phone and wiped his eyes. Emma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, I said. You were a kid. Will you stay? He asked. For the reception? Please? I want you here. I want you to meet Olivia's family, and I just want you here. I looked at Marcus and Diane. They looked like their worst nightmare had come true. In a way, it had. They'd been exposed in front of everyone they knew, at their son's wedding, captured on a dozen phones that would definitely end up on social media. I'd love to stay, I said. If you're sure. I'm sure. He hugged me, and I realized he was almost a foot taller than me now. I missed you so much. I missed you too, buddy. Natalie had recovered her composure. Well, she said briskly, I think we should all take a moment to let the happy couple enjoy their day. Emma, your desserts are spectacular. Everyone, please help yourselves. And perhaps those who need to have private conversations could step into the hall? Marcus and Diane slunk away like scolded children. Margaret followed them, still muttering about disgraceful behavior. The party slowly resumed, but with a new energy. I was suddenly the most popular person in the room. Guests kept coming up to compliment the desserts, but also to quietly tell me they'd always thought something was off about Marcus and Diane's story. Several people asked for Proof's business card. Jordan's best man, a tall guy named Chris, cornered me near the bar. That was the most epic thing I've ever seen. Jordan's been depressed about losing you for years. Can I say, on behalf of all of us who actually care about him, thank you for coming back. I didn't come back. I corrected gently. I just happened to get hired for a job. But you stayed. After all that, you stayed. For Jordan, yeah. He deserves a good wedding day despite his parents' mess. Around 9 p.m. after dinner and speeches notably, both the father of the groom and mother of the groom speeches were cancelled. Jordan and Olivia cut the cake. They'd specifically requested I be in the photos with them. This is the best thing I've ever tasted, Olivia declared after her first bite. Emma, you have to make our anniversary cakes. Every single year. It would be my honor, I said. Later, as Miguel and I were packing up the truck, Jordan came outside. Hey, he said. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you ever reach out? I mean, I know why you left. But in 7 years, you never called, never wrote. I thought about it every day, I admitted. But Jordan, you were 12. Your mom and dad were telling you I was sick, unstable. If I'd suddenly shown up or called, what would you have thought? Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought they were right? That I was crazy? He considered this. Probably I would have believed them. God, that's awful. You were a kid. You trusted your parents. That's what kids are supposed to do. But now I don't know if I can ever trust them again. That's between you and them, I said. My only advice? Don't make decisions when you're angry. Sit with this for a while. Talk to Olivia. Maybe talk to a therapist. Figure out what kind of relationship, if any, you want with your parents. What kind of relationship do you want with me? I smiled. I'd like to be a part of your life again, if you want that. No pressure. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere this time. He hugged me again. I want that. Olivia wants that too. She's already planning to drag you into all her holiday plans. I heard that. Olivia called from the doorway. And it's true. Fair warning, my mom is going to want to hire you for everything. She's already planning my sister's wedding and your 1-year anniversary party. We all laughed, and it felt good. It felt normal. As Miguel and I drove back to Louisville the next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The story had already spread across social media. Baker exposes ex-husband's bigamy at stepson's wedding was trending on Twitter. The Instagram post I'd made of the cake had gone viral, 50,000 likes and counting. But more importantly, I had 17 new wedding inquiries, including one from a celebrity chef's daughter. Boss, Miguel said, grinning, I think we're going to need to expand again. Yeah, I agreed. I think you're right. 3 months later, I finally filed for divorce. Marcus didn't contest it. His lawyer called mine and basically begged us to keep it quiet. Apparently, several of his real estate deals were falling apart because people didn't want to work with someone who'd committed fraud and bigamy. Diane filed for divorce from Marcus a month after that. Turned out, being publicly exposed as an adulteress and manipulator wasn't great for her social media influencer career. Who knew? Jordan calls me every Sunday. He and Olivia came to Louisville for Thanksgiving. Margaret sends me Christmas cards. Last week, I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Diane, Emma, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness and I'm not asking for it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What I did to you was unforgivable. I destroyed your life because I was jealous of what you had, and then I told myself I deserved it more. I was wrong. Jordan won't speak to me. Marcus and I are divorced. I lost my sponsorships and most of my friends. I'm living in a small apartment in Indiana, working at a retail job. It's not much, but it's honest work, and I'm trying to figure out who I am without the lies. I'm not telling you this to make you feel sorry for me. I just thought you should know that you won. Not because my life fell apart, but because you built something real while I built everything on sand. Your bakery is beautiful. Jordan showed me the photos. You have every right to be proud. I hope someday I can be even a fraction of the person you are. Diane, I read it twice, then put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe not. The closure wasn't up to her anymore. I used to think walking away made me weak. But standing in my bakery, watching Miguel train 2 new pastry chefs, seeing the wall of photos from happy customers' events, getting texts from Jordan about his life, I realized something. Walking away wasn't weakness. It was the strongest thing I'd ever done. I didn't get revenge by destroying them. I got it by refusing to let them destroy me. And honestly, that's so much sweeter than any cake I've ever made.